fire, strumming along with our favorite lyre. Adventure call, the quest awaits, your destiny's in the hands of the fates. But never fear, we're all friends here, we'll have your back when danger's near. Come with us through the pages as we unravel a tale for the ages into the Percy-Verse.
Hello and welcome to the Percy-Verse podcast. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Anna. Rev your ancient Greek engines, because today we're reading Sea of Monsters, Chapter 6, Demon Pigeons Attack. In this chapter, Tyson is psyched to have Percy as a brother. Percy, not so much. Grover makes a long-distance call to Percy to reveal that they are now both in mortal peril, and Annabeth and Percy get into a fight right before the perilous chariot races begin, which are just a hoot.
Wow, great pun, great pun.
Thank you.
Also, I love the thought of like revving your chariot engine just being like getting the horses to whinny or something.
Right. Yeah. Percy's just in his head going vroom vroom, like
vroom vroom. Just telepathically telling.
Exactly.
That, like, vroom, vroom, yeah. Get ready to go.
And the horses are like pawing, at the ground.
Yeah.
That's kind of the rev. Yeah.
Well, this is quite the meaty chapter. I think this is like one of the first ones in this book where a lot happens both like emotionally and plot wise.
Agreed.
And we kind of dive just directly into the meat of the aftermath of the revelation that Tyson is also a child of Poseidon, how Percy feels about it, how the other campers feel about it, and kind of Percy's real deep emotional struggle with it, because Tyson is just, like you said in your lovely intro, Tyson is just psyched and like is just
couldn't be happier.
Truly, this is like Tyson's best day.
Yeah, Christmas plus birthday plus New Year's plus 4th of July plus like every single year Tyson celebrates. I found out Percy was my brother day. That's the vibes.
Yes.
With fireworks that he makes himself.
Yeah. Whereas Percy is embarrassed and ashamed per his own admission. Yeah. And whenever he gets comments from other campers, says that Tyson isn't his real brother and really tries to distance himself, even saying things like, oh, he's just like a half brother on the monstrous side, so he's like twice removed, or what, he's really trying to put as much distance as he can and not claim Tyson as family, but kind of make it more of like it's a technicality, it's a like, sure, I guess, maybe, but like it's not actually, he's not actually my brother, is where Percy is at in this moment.
Meanwhile, the campers are definitely encouraging that kind of reaction from him by basically making fun of him and Tyson as much as possible. And I think, I wanted to take a moment actually with the word ashamed, because I thought it was really interesting that that's what he kind of admits right off the top of the chapter. Yeah. And, the difference between guilt and shame is guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I am bad, and like the thought process. And so thinking about like, why would Percy feel ashamed, right? I think that, this speaks to the way that monsters are seen in this world, and this sort of like dichotomy between monsters and everybody else. And people would probably say monsters are bad. And so I think that then Percy, by association, it makes him feel like he is bad if he's related to who people are calling and who he's thinking of as a monster. Yeah. But I also think what's interesting in this chapter is that I feel like we've talked maybe a little bit about parts work on here before, and like the idea that, we all have all these different parts inside of us. And I feel like you can really see two of Percy's parts battling it out in this chapter. Yeah. He's sort of admitting, like, I have this part of me that feels ashamed, that wants to distance myself from Tyson, that doesn't want to be associated with him, that doesn't want to feel monstrous, right? And then the whole reason he's going to get into a fight with Annabeth later is because he has another part that, like, does love Tyson and does want to protect him and does want to defend him and doesn't think he's a monster. And I feel like this is one of the clearest examples so far in the books where you can see, like, parts of someone battling it out for, you know, having these different really, really strong feelings.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I also felt like when he admits that he feels ashamed, to me it also, and maybe I was reading too much into it, but it also felt layered. Like there's the shame that he associates with Tyson and monsters and his relation to Tyson, but then it also to me felt like there was this other layer of shame of Percy feeling ashamed for feeling ashamed, like that there's like a meta feeling, like happening as well. For those of you who don't know, meta feeling, a feeling about your feeling. And that, so I feel like there are layers to the shame that he's feeling around this, and I think we see that, to your point, like perfectly demonstrated in this first section of the chapter is just about how Percy is all of these like embarrassment and shame feelings that Percy's having, and and Annabeth trying to make him feel better, but it's not working. And then the second scene of this chapter is this interaction with Annabeth where she is basically saying, like, she's like telling him, like, yes, you do have a monster for a brother, but it's not your fault. And then he gets mad at her, and to your point of like this other part comes out, and it's like defensiveness and protectiveness, and no, I do care about Tyson, don't call him a monster, like, no, he's not. And so I think it's a very interesting start, because I think we really see the complexity of Percy in this moment, and he's not 100% in like one camp of feelings. He's kind of got like one foot in each, like, simultaneously, like like at all times, and that just kind of, I think, makes him feel very overwhelmed, like the whole time, and he just like doesn't really know what to do with any of it.
Understandably. Absolutely. I also think there's a phenomenon of like sometimes we can get the maddest at someone when they do the thing we like least about ourselves. Yeah. And I think his reaction to Annabeth is super interesting, because just before that, he's calling Tyson a monster. He's like on the monster side of the family, you know, like he's using that word. And I think it's also an example of like when someone else does something where we see ourselves in that. Sometimes that can make us the most defensive or the most upset at them.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of coming up. The other thing I thought was huge here is this line that says, "Suddenly I wasn't Percy Jackson, the cool guy who'd retrieved Zeus's lightning bolt last summer. Now I was Percy Jackson, the poor schmuck with an ugly monster for a brother." And I think this, too, is really, really key. Percy went through this whole experience last year of showing up to camp and being bullied and being kind of a pariah. And he was used to that. Like, he was used to this underdog mentality. Yeah. And he really liked coming back a hero at the end of last book. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that makes it hard for him to put the hero mantle down, which, again, understandable. But I do think it's a really hard transition, especially with the rest of camp feeling so unsettled. It's like everything is upside down. Everything is inside out, including this idea that he is no longer being seen as a hero. And it's like it erased everything that he did last summer in the eyes of the other campers. I think that's a really hard transition for him.
Absolutely. And I think there are layers. Like, I read the wording of the poor schmuck as like Percy experiencing like pity from the other campers, which I don't think Percy likes to be pitied. Like, and I think being pitied is different than being an underdog. Absolutely. Like, it's different than being underestimated. And I think Percy almost thrives being underestimated.
He does.
I think he despises being pitied. Like, and then this moment, I think there's like a mix from the other campers of pity and then also like kind of disgust and disdain at Tyson and therefore at Percy for being so close to him. And I think the other thing that Percy struggles with in this moment, and I think can more broadly, is like if people dislike him for something that he did, or they're underestimating him, or teachers who like didn't like him for his stuff, it's like he can kind of like carry that as like a badge of honor, but it's like
Yes.
someone else, it's Tyson's existence that is like forcing that onto Percy and like his
Yeah.
mind. And I think that's the other thing that he really struggles with, is like it's not actually him, it's his
Totally.
proximity to Tyson. And I
Yep.
think that is also something that Percy like can't wrap his brain around, because he's like, it's not me, it's just because he's related to
Right.
me, but it's not me, because he keeps on trying to like
Yes.
place as much distance as he can and like make them be so much more separate, like
Yeah.
in his own mind and in everyone else's minds.
Which, to your point last time, like, isn't something he did with Grover in the
Yeah.
same way. Like, I think that
And
we see
I
that
think it's because they were
difference.
like underdogs together.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
neither of them fit in at Yancey to begin with, and like both of them were bullied by
Yep.
Nancy Bobofit, and like they were like underdogs jointly together, whereas like
Yes.
Percy has never been an underdog jointly with Tyson, because arguably like neither
Right.
of them are actually underdogs. Tyson is
No.
incredibly skilled and
Yes.
capable,
And
like,
strong
and
and
Percy,
taller than everyone else. Like,
yes, and Percy is as well. So neither of them are actually underdogs. They're just like Tyson is othered because of his like identity, not because of his
yes.
lack of skill or whatever. Not
Right.
not like
Like with
Tyson
Grover, it
more
was
than
like
proved
anxiety
himself.
or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Like Tyson defeated an entire one of those bronze bulls by himself. And that didn't earn him stature, or like in the way that when Percy took down the Minotaur, it was like, oh, okay, new guy in town,
Yep.
and like he's earned some respect for this. That earned Tyson nothing. Like for
Yep.
doing that and for helping to save camp in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, neither of them are underdogs. They're Tyson's being othered because of his just the fact that he's a Cyclops, and then Percy's being lumped in with that, and I think Percy really struggles with like being grouped in that way for something that's not him, like his own identity or actions.
Yeah, I feel like his reaction to Tantalus is very versus the other kids is a good example of that. Like I think with Tantalus he has that like underdog energy. Like we even see him in this
Yes.
chapter, like he's talking back to him and he's you know, that's his like comfort spot, to your point.
Yeah.
But with the other campers it's something that he hasn't experienced before, that he's not used to, and I think that's
Yeah.
part of what brings up these new feelings. And
Yeah,
you know, this
absolutely.
argument with Annabeth, which is really hard. You know, I think it's not uncommon to like fight with people you're close with when you're
Yeah.
bothered by something else
Yeah.
that actually doesn't have anything to do with them.
Well, and very quickly to the point that you're making earlier, of like if someone else does something like
Yeah.
that you dislike in yourself, and then like you get mad at them. This scene in this fight with Annabeth really felt like a moment where, because of how close they are personally, Annabeth was
Yeah.
almost serving as like a mirror to Percy and forcing
Totally.
Percy to hear and see everything that he was doing, like brought back at him in a way that like, because he's not as close with the other campers, like it's like being taken in by him differently, whereas when Annabeth does it, it's I think really forcing him to confront like,
Yeah.
oh my, this is all the stuff that I have been saying and thinking, and now
Right.
Annabeth, one of my best friends, is right here in front of me dishing it right back to me, and I'm now having to realize, oh my god, when now I'm getting mad at like Annabeth, like even though I
Partly
think
because
it's a
I'm mad
mix
at
of-
myself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and then we also, this section gives us another hint that Annabeth has a past with
Yes.
Cyclopes, because, you know, Annabeth starts to say Cyclopes are the most deceitful, treacherous, etc. And then Percy gets really defensive, but we get Percy's intuition pops up, as it often does, and he gets this feeling that there's something bad that Annabeth isn't telling him.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. And Percy just won't let it go. And Annabeth is like, because they're intending to design their chariot together, because Poseidon created horses out of sea foam, and Athena created the chariot, which was introduced in the previous book, which is kind of fun as the like example when Percy asked Annabeth if Poseidon and Athena ever collaborated or worked together. So it's kind of fun. Like now we have you know, that in real life they're at least making the plans to do the chariot race together. This fight ends up having Annabeth say, okay, maybe you should just do the chariot with Tyson because you're defending him so much. And then Percy's like, maybe I should. Annabeth says, fine. And Percy says, fine.
Yeah. It's a very petty middle school argument.
It's amazing. It's the best argument ever. Yeah, I love it. And then here I think is really telling, where Percy says that Annabeth storms off and leaves him feeling worse than before. And I think it's like, not because, you know, he feels only at fault or just because he had a fight with Annabeth or whatever. I think it's like all the layers we were just talking about are just sort of really hitting him. And then he's also caused conflict and distanced himself from like one of his only remaining friends at camp. And that's a really tough place to be in.
It is. The other last thing before we move on from that fight that I wanted to highlight was at the beginning of the fight, when Annabeth's telling Percy that it's not his fault that he has a monster for a brother, and Percy argues back by saying both that Tyson is not his brother and he's not a monster, which I think really shows the like cognitive dissonance that Percy's in.
That's a really good example.
Annabeth is basically like, don't get mad at me, he technically is a monster. And then Percy shoots back with, well, you gave him permission to enter the camp, which I found really interesting, because it's like Percy is mad at Annabeth for allowing Tyson to enter, and kind of, you know, like that being therefore, if he hadn't like entered camp, then none of this would have happened. Claimed. Which to me, I'm just like, okay, so would you have had Tyson sleep on the other side of the hill, like because Percy was the one who in the chapter they're having to leave New York is like, Tyson, you got to come with us. Annabeth does not want him to come. Percy wants Tyson to come, but now that Tyson has arrived,
he finds out who he is.
Exactly, and all of the dominoes fall. Now Percy's kind of trying to like find somewhere to be like, it's your fault that all these things happened, when it's like, actually,
and
it's
also, you know, like, the likely scenario is if Annabeth hadn't let him in, as she points out, like, Percy would be dead. So
exactly,
like, not a better outcome than we're in right now.
No. Which then it's funny, because then later on, after Annabeth, you know, says mean things about him being a Cyclops, then Percy shoots back with the "he saved my life." So there's this really this whole argument is such this like back and forth and like, Percy jumping between like feeling one way or the other about Tyson, and I think I know I already used this word, but I think it really shows like his cognitive dissonance around this whole thing.
Well, and what I was saying about, I think, like the parts being in conflict. I think that's
absolutely
really, really clear in that.
Yeah. And so then we get a next couple of kind of a summary of like the next couple of days, where we do get an introduction to our next newest camp member, Selena Beauregard is how I've always pronounced her name. Who Percy describes as being one of the nicer girls from Aphrodite's cabin. So now we have both Beckendorf and Selena, which is very exciting, but also heartbreaking for me.
It is.
Just like knowing what is to come for both of them. I know. It's so bittersweet, because I love them both so much, and it's also just it's sad. I'm laughing, but it's because I'm laughing not to cry.
Right. No, I know. It also feels, in the book where like Clarice plays such a big role, it feels like it makes sense to then like have our introduction to Selena, you know, and Beckendorf, like to have. It's like you don't realize until later that it's very meaningful for them to all be, you know, playing a big role in this book together. But yes, it is very bittersweet.
It is. And so we get this kind of rundown of basically what Percy has been doing at camp during these days. So Selena was giving him his first writing lessons on a Pegasus. And we get the explanation that like Lord Pegasus still exists, and he just basically sired a bunch of children who are also called, you know, a Pegasus, but they're just not as like powerful and strong and fast as like the Lord Pegasus is. And we discover, I think, that like Percy, the like understanding their thoughts, like we had the communicating with the zebra and stuff in book 1, but I think this is the first time we're getting like this extends to like the Pegasus and like, you know,
like
everything else,
like
horse. Yes. And Tyson is there and wants to ride, but unfortunately what Tyson calls the chicken ponies, which I think is really cute.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
I love
the
Tyson's name
Pegasi.
for everything.
I know. The Pegasi are scared, and that makes Tyson really upset, and he cries. And I do want to say that I love how emotional Tyson is, like, that he cries when he gets upset. Like, he is so expressive in his emotions, whether they be joy or sadness or whatever. And I do love that about Tyson.
On that note, I think that's really actually important to note, because one of the things that happens as like humans when we other people is we tend to like desensitize, like either to them or about them, like that they don't have as much feeling as we do, or that we don't feel as much toward them, etc. And so I actually think that having someone who is being so othered in the story be very emotive is really important, so that we experience how and here's where I don't know, you know, normally I would say like how human he is, you know what I mean? But like but just like how much of a tangible feeling being that has like value, you know, and it then naturally should make you wonder, like, what are all the other like beings that we call monsters in this book feeling it all the time, you know? And I think that's like a theme for sure that continues through the different series. But the other thing above this that I think is just worthy of note real quick is the loophole that Percy discovers that is important given all of the emphasis in The Lightning Thief on Percy not being able to fly. His first time on a plane is like coming back, and Zeus gets really, really mad at him for having done that, etc. So here we get the explanation that even though Percy's supposed to stay out of Zeus's domain of the sky as much as possible, that apparently there is a loophole, a horsey loophole, that if he's on a Pegasus, it doesn't count. It's like a little pocket of protection in the sky, because Poseidon created all horses, or created horses originally. So I just wrote loophole, so it's kind of fun to like find those in the rules of, you know, the magical world here.
Yes, absolutely. And then we get to the only man in camp who has no problem with Tyson whatsoever, which is the only Charles Beckendorf, who, because Hephaestus has always worked with the Cyclopses in his forges, Beckendorf is just like, hey, let's go, dude, you and me. Yeah. And says that he'll have Tyson crafting magic items like a master in no time, which is, I think, a great, like, Percy doesn't take that in, I don't think, to be like, oh yes, like incredibly skilled. But we will be seeing just truly how skilled Tyson is. And how much he learns, how quickly. And then Percy wants to blow off some steam with swordplay with the Apollo cabin. And we get this kind of nugget reminder about Luke, and that Percy's like the best except in comparison to Luke, and this reminder of like, and Percy is always compared to Luke. And I think you could, like, to me as the reader, I felt the like, okay, Percy's getting tired of the Luke comparisons. Like, he's getting over it.
But I think it's also a good thing, because Luke isn't present at camp in this book. To get the reminder that Luke is very good at swordplay, and that he's like more than a match for Percy a lot of the time. And we even experienced earlier in this book Percy being out of practice and kind of feeling that with Riptide, and I think it's good to have here an example of him brushing up on his skills before he's going to have to go out and actually like face some challenges.
And I also think it's a great way of kind of demonstrating via the writing that like Luke is kind of like omnipresent is that the right word for it? Like at camp, like even though he's no longer physically there, like there are all these just like reminders of him, even like going to fight in that ring, like Percy just thinks of him, and then other people are always kind of comparing him, so it's like Luke will never like fade from like people's minds and like the memory of camp. And then there's this like very prominent reminder of Talia's tree, like and dying, that because Luke really is like not all that present in this book, but he is, because like he's living rent free in everyone's brains.
Absolutely. And especially in Percy's.
Moment.
Like, we get a second sentence in this chapter, similar to one we got before, that's like, he pretended to be my friend and then he betrayed me. And like that sort of, Percy can't get over that construction of like how their relationship went down last year.
Yeah, which I do think, I'm realizing, I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but that just made me think about like Percy's fatal flaw kind of being that like he thinks he can like save everyone and all his friends and his loved ones. That I do think for Percy in particular, obviously betrayals are incredibly hurtful and like damaging.
Yeah, but like extra.
And I think because Percy loves his friends so much, like the people that he loves, Percy is like a ride or die. Like, I feel like, in terms of, like, if you are in his corner, then you are, like, he's like, I got you.
He will do anything for you.
Yeah. Yes. And so then I think that's why that betrayal, like, hurts so deeply, like, for him, because he is that type of person where his friends mean so much to him. And then just to come back to the Tyson layer, I think that's also why he is having these like two battling parts be so intense, because there is this like, no, my friends are my people. Like, I ride for my friends.
Tyson was my friend, like supposedly, but I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. And we do get this kind of explanation of like, Percy is in the arena with Apollo's cabin, which he shouldn't be in because all of them are too easy for him to take down. He should be fighting Ares or Athena, but he doesn't really like Clarice yet, and he doesn't want to see Annabeth. And so he's avoiding both of those cabins and the people in them. And then we get a couple more things that he attends. So he goes to archery class, but it's not the same because Chiron's not there. We get a fun little arts and craft moment where, for whatever reason, he starts a marble bust of Poseidon, which I think is a really funny choice given how like mad he is at his dad kind of weird. Right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Feels like an odd choice, but it starts looking like Sylvester Stallone, and so he kind of goes, whatever, I'm over it. And then I think it feels like maybe he wants to like, I feel good about myself, and so he goes scales the lava and earthquake, the wall in like full lava and earthquake mode, and I feel like then he's like, okay, all right, I'm feeling a little bit better.
I did something hard. I feel accomplished.
Yes.
Totally.
And then we find out that even though Tantalus told everyone to forget about Border Patrol, there are still some campers who have like quietly worked out a schedule and do it in their own free time, a little bit under the radar. And then we end this kind of sequence at camp with Percy at one of his patrol shifts, seeing the dryads and the satyrs coming to kind of help with their magic, and for a moment the pine needles get a little fuller, the flowers, the hills smell sweeter, it seems like it's working, but as soon as the music has stopped, that the satyrs were playing with their reed pipes, it's like the sickness comes back into the air. And I wanted to point out, it says the whole hill seemed to be infected, dying from the poison that had sunk into the tree's roots. And to what we were talking about in the last episode, my question of like, how was the magical border before? Right. This made me wonder if maybe the hill was like the anchor originally before Talia's tree was placed at the top of it. If maybe the hill was the original magical anchor, and then a tree growing out from it strengthened it. And so the tree... And then the poison from there seeping into the hill. It's like affecting
the area,
is affecting the whole area, and maybe just that area was the original anchor point, and that's why everything's gotten so weak. That makes sense,
because I do think there's something in the first book about, like, you can't go past that hill or over that hill or something, so I do think that tracks there. Two things. One is that this whole paragraph was very moving, like the description of the nature spirits and the satyrs, like, and the pine tree getting a little bit better, and the smells, and then it kind of like lessens again. I felt like that was really impactful, like describing them just like trying and it's not working.
I know.
It's kind of like heartbreaking, but I also wanted to ask if you thought that mentioning Tantalus like so many times, not wanting them to do a border patrol, is that supposed to raise suspicions about Tantalus being in cahoots with Kronos, do you think?
I think so, because like there isn't really, in my opinion, like any other, he doesn't really benefit in any other way, because
Yeah,
honestly, like if he wants to like keep the kids unhappy, making a more intense sport, like giving them more
totally. More
chores and
chores,
things,
yeah.
like would be the way to go. So yeah,
Right.
I do think that is supposed to be hinting at
Okay.
like there's foul play afoot.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got. I feel like he's kind of a general antagonist a lot of the time, so
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, okay, is this a adult authority figure just generally kind of a like pain in the butt, or
Yeah.
like is there something deeper? But I felt like this section was kind of meant to raise some suspicions about him.
I think so. And I think for a book where, and I could be wrong about this because I have nowhere near a perfect memory of anything, but for a book where it feels like Kronos and Luke are largely not as present as they are in other books, for example, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like Tantalus is kind of serving like that purpose in the way that like when Luke was still at camp in those first chapters, we were pointing out all the ways in which like it had to be Luke sowing these seeds and doing all these
Right,
things. Like
like leaving
it's
the
like there
newspaper
needs,
and
yeah, it's like there always needs to be an inside man in
mm-hmm.
camp who's like stirring the pot and making things messier and
Yeah,
harder and like
poking at Percy and
yeah, and that feels like that's always part of Kronos's play because um yeah, that feels like that's, I mean, because he was like Selena, just like it
yeah.
like every it feels like every time Kronos loses his inside man, he like gets another one and he's like, okay,
It's kind
now
of
we're gonna
like
recruit you.
in chess. I feel like he always has to have like a pawn at camp.
Yeah, totally. Yes, that's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think Luke was obviously more than a pawn. He's like a knight or
Yeah.
something, but I think he always has to have a piece and usually like a
Yeah.
pawn at camp, which is smart. It's good. It's good
Mm-hmm.
strategy. Um, and this part where Percy is also, I think, feeling quite heart-wrenched watching the nature spirits and the satyrs trying to revive
Yeah.
the hill does make him think about Luke, and he remembers the sly smile and the dragon claw scar across his face, and this is where he's getting mad again
Mm-hmm.
about Luke betraying him. And he can even see the scar he has from the pit scorpion, and he remembers what Luke told him right before he was going to kill him with the pit
Yeah.
scorpion, where he said, "Goodbye, Percy. There's a new golden age coming. You won't be part of it."
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, this is clearly staying with Percy, and
Yeah.
and I think we're also building up more and more and more of his motivation of like we're going to get, soon to Grover, but more and more of his motivation for the actions that he'll take in this book. And I think this is
Yeah.
like that undercurrent. It's interesting because in the Lightning Thief, we talked a lot about how each of the characters had their own personal motivations on top
Yes.
of or instead of, in some
Mm-hmm.
cases, the like save the world motivation.
Yeah.
And I feel like now some of that has become inextricably linked for Percy, where his personal motivations and save the world motivations feel very
Mm-hmm.
tied together. Like
Totally.
Luke betraying him and his feelings about Luke and Kronos feel very personal,
Yes.
but in combating them, he is trying to save the world. So it's interesting how
Yeah.
those have become intermingled, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And the last thing that this section made me think of, and it's not
Yeah.
even really like a fully formed thought, and I also don't know if it's maybe something we've kind of touched on before, but
Yeah.
this moment of the nature, the dryads, the satyrs, the moment where the hill feels like it's kind of coming back to life and then it
Yeah.
dies again. It brought up so many trains of not fully formed thoughts that I just kind of want to share. And the first was that finding it really interesting that like in this attack, Kronos is kind of like attacking nature, which feels excuse me, very like intrinsically tied into Camp Half-Blood, like
Yeah.
with like the dryads and the satyrs and the strawberry fields, and
Totally.
like Camp Half-Blood feels like a place that is very kind of like in tune with nature and like lives with nature and not kind of like
Yes.
in opposition to nature, and so this being like Kronos attacking nature and therefore that, and like the peace and the serenity of camp, I think is really interesting. And that then made me think about how I don't necessarily feel that like Camp Jupiter has that same like harmony, like a little kind of hippie like vibe in terms of like the relationship to nature, which I think is interesting. And then I just also, it made me wonder, like, I know that Gaia's kind of like pieced out at the moment, but this just made me wonder, like, does she ever kind of become aware of like a piece of me is being poisoned right now by something from the depths of Tartarus, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's interesting.
So I had so many I had so many like curiosities off of
like
this,
ear perks
but
up.
Yeah. So I wanted to share those.
Those are good thoughts. I don't know the answer to that, but
that's fine.
But I do think that's interesting. Yeah, to think about.
Yeah. So we leave Luke. We leave Percy at the top of the hill thinking about Luke. Yes, and then we cut to the evening at night, and this is when we have our second Grover dream, I believe, our second, and this one is a pretty huge deal. Oh yeah. In terms of what's learned, it's kind of funny because I feel like it. So actually, really quickly before we get into the dream, we do have this moment with Tyson that I want to talk about before we get into the dreams.
Agreed. This is also really huge.
Yes. So Tyson and Percy, I believe they're in their cabin. Yes, turning in for bed, and Tyson has this moment where he asks Percy, "You are mad?" And Percy realizes that he's been scowling and says, "Nah, I'm not mad." And then Tyson like lays down in bed and just says, "I am a monster." And Percy says, "Don't say that." And Tyson replies, "It's okay. I will be a good monster. Then you will not have to be mad." And I think like, this whole interaction just, I know, crying, but also just proves that like Tyson is aware. Tyson knows.
Absolutely.
Tyson knows that Percy doesn't like him, is not happy
knows
with
what everyone
happening.
else is saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Tyson is not like
oblivious.
You know, I feel like Percy treats him like an oblivious like 2 or 3 year old, but to the point of like if you've been around a 2 or 3 year old, they also know what's up.
Yep,
they pick up
attention.
on what is being put down by everyone around them, even if they can't form full complex sentences to like describe what's happening. And so yeah, Tyson is completely aware of all of the dynamics and all of the feelings, and it's such a heartbreaking conversation because like Tyson, I feel, is being like honest and like vulnerable in this, and Percy is just, he's not able to be that same honest back, and that same like honest. Yeah, he is mad, and it's so heartbreaking that Tyson is like, "I'll be a good monster." Like he knows that like monsters are bad. He's basically like, "I will be the exception to what everyone else says." Then you don't have to be mad. It's like about like, then you can be okay because I will like prove to everyone that I'm good, so then you can be fine. Like it's
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I particularly love that section because I think Percy's response to Tyson saying "I am a monster" is really important. Percy says, "Don't say that." Like he doesn't say anything other than "Don't say you're a monster," right? Like it's basically like, don't say what you're like. If we go back to this idea that being a monster is an identity, right? It's like, don't say that you are this identity, right? Yes, because this identity equals bad. Right. And then I actually think that what Tyson says is like so sophisticated in the sense of like reclaiming of a word. Like he's like, "I will be a good monster." And I think what he means is like we can use the word monster and it doesn't have to be bad. And I feel like like so much of the time that's how words get reclaimed, is being like, this word that correlates to my identity doesn't have to mean bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I think that this, so I found that to be really impactful, like as sad and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching as like this interaction is, and sad that also just, you know, Tyson is so tied into and tuned into Percy's emotions and like sees his own actions and how people respond to him is like affecting Percy, and that's what he's focused on rather than like being able to focus on his own feelings of like how it must feel to be the source of you know, the brunt of all the jokes and all of that. But I love the idea that he's working toward even just reclaiming this word that's like who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to your point, I think like when Tyson says, I am a monster, I don't think Tyson means I'm monstrous, like I am a terrifying, horrifying thing. But like you're saying, when Percy says, don't say that, it's like Percy's kind of saying both, like he's not saying like, no, you're not a monster in the way that people like are using that, because some people at camp are using it to mean monstrous, like Tyson is this like terrifying like beast, like be afraid.
Like
most
people are doing it that way. Exactly.
Tyson's
just saying this is my identity.
Exactly. Like this is my like my classification. Like you are human, I am monster. Like this is like my species. Like Monsters
Inc.
Yeah. And so it is complicated, and there is I think Tyson is like you were saying, he's communicating a very complicated thing, and he's I think communicating it very simply, and Percy is not able to like meet him in that
definitely
moment.
Not. He hasn't bought into that reframe yet. Funny side tangent really quickly, as I was saying Monsters Inc. and our association with that word. I remember the first time I saw that movie was in like, I want to say elementary school or something, or middle school. And I was going to, a friend was doing it as a birthday party of like taking everyone to the movie theater, you know, where you all got your little box of like little popcorn, little candy, little drinks. I was so worried because I didn't like scary movies. I still don't like scary movies.
Oh, I remember this.
I was so worried about going to see a movie with a bunch of other kids called Monsters Inc. that I was going to get really scared and like embarrass myself. And then I go see this like delightful animated film that quickly became one of my favorite movies. I was like, I can't believe I was so scared of this movie. But I feel like that just now I'm sitting like, that really illustrates like what the word monster means to us in society, you know? That I went in like ready for like a serious like thriller,
like a horror film,
you know, like a horror movie.
Which is funny to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take a bunch of like young kids, we're gonna go see a horror movie.
Right. Well, you know, whatever horror would be for 11-year-old or whatever I was.
Back to the this particular conversation. There's a lot there, and after Tyson says, then you'll not have to be mad, Percy doesn't know what to say. He stares at the ceiling, and it says, and felt like I was dying slowly right along with Talia's tree. So again, we're just really seeing intense. Like the internal struggle that Percy is going through, because I think he feels like he's dying in both ways of like, I'm dying because Tyson is my half brother and it's killing me to be at camp and feel like I'm on the outs and all this stuff, but also he's dying because it's like that other part of him is like, but Tyson is our friend, and we're being like mean to Tyson. With his values. And then he tries to kind of come up with basically these excuses, saying that he's just never had a half brother before, and he's trying to keep his voice from cracking. So he's really, really emotional. And he says, like, kind of vaguely, it's really different for me, and that he's worried about camp and that Grover might be in trouble, and he just wants to help. And Tyson doesn't reply, and Percy apologizes to him, says, I'm sorry, it's not your fault. And this is the other part I found really fascinating. Percy says, I'm mad at Poseidon. I feel like he's trying to embarrass me, like he's trying to compare us or something, and I don't understand why. And I think, like, that is such, I think, an interesting, like, view
Yeah.
into Percy's perspective and thinking on all of this, like that he feels like in Poseidon claiming Tyson, that Poseidon is trying to embarrass Percy via that, and then also think that he is thinking that Poseidon is trying to compare the two of them, even though that's not what's happening. Percy prayed, send someone to help me, and Poseidon went, got you, dude, you've already got your guy there. I'm just gonna make it more obvious that your help is literally already here, because you're clearly not seeing it. And I think it's actually that, like, Percy is doing all of this stuff internally, like comparing himself to Tyson. Other people are doing it. Percy feels embarrassed by all of this, and I think instead of like realizing like I'm feeling all these things, I'm just kind of putting it onto Poseidon, even though that's not actually what's happening. It's easier for him to be mad at Poseidon rather than be able to do that kind of like internal like reflection on how he's feeling.
I really wonder if when Tyson had defeated the bull, everyone had treated him the way they treated Percy with the Minotaur and held him up as a hero and were fighting over what table he got to sit at and, like cheering him, if Percy would have this same feeling when he got claimed. Like, I really do wonder how much of it is... Because certainly Percy's own internal bias and experience of Tyson is there. But it feels like so much of this is societal and peer pressure that is weighing on Percy, which, again, is like a thing that we navigate that is, like we talked about last time, like, it's hard. Like, it's hard, especially as a middle schooler, to stand up to any kind of peer pressure or societal norm and go against, especially when it's in that more realm of like we talked about earlier, embarrassment and shaming rather than like a underdog feeling. Right. Yeah. So anyway, I feel like it is such an impact. It has such an impact that it's coming from all of these people who previously were looking to Percy as like a hero.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because we can even see, like, thinking back to the first book when, Percy kind of discovers he's really good at sword fighting, and the comparisons to Luke even begin. Like, before the reveal of Luke as a bad guy, it's like a badge of honor to be like, oh, like, I'm being compared to, like, the greatest swordsman of, like, the last 100 years at this camp. Like, oh my God, this is, like, incredible. Like, it's a testament to my skill. And they're not even, like, in the same cabin. And so I do think that it really is shaped a lot by other people's perception of him, also combined with, back to our continued parallel of Percy's relationship with Grover versus his relationship with Tyson. Like, from the jump, I think Percy also had his own internal stuff with Tyson from the beginning that just got amplified by what everyone else was saying and like feeling about Tyson. And so I think it's like it's just two really big forces coming together that like really amplify what already kind of exists in Percy and just magnifies it and blows it up even more.
Absolutely. And while Percy has said before he talks to Tyson that he's been having these dreams about Grover, but they're not very clear. And he heard him say it's here, and he heard him say he likes sheep, like these little kind of hints. Now we get into the dream, capital D dream. And in the dream...
It's like there was like a radio when you're trying to catch the signal. And it's like Percy...
He finally found the right frequency.
Trying to catch Percy's signal, and Grover's finally now caught it. And so now we actually have...
a full, like, the pixels are in and the, like, we actually can kind of be fully in this link. And so in the dream, Grover's wearing a wedding dress that's not fitting him very well. And it's also quite dirty that we see. And we also see that he's wearing a veil, which is important. And he's in a cave that's lit by torches. He's got a cot and an old-fashioned loom. And he's weaving on this loom. Yeah. He's weaving something. And he's like staring right at Percy. Yeah. I think so. He's just like, Percy. Yeah. Which I think would be kind of alarming in a dream, to be honest. Yes. And he's like, thank the gods, can you hear me? So it's like he did finally get that, you know, TV set or radio tune just right. And I think, you know, Percy's sort of in like Daisy Dream mode, so he's not like quick to respond. He doesn't have the same kind of like urgency, and he can smell the stench of sheep, so he has like full sensory experience, right? And I think it's because of this empathy link that they have now.
He's got the 4D viewing experience.
He's got the 4D. The water's hitting him in the face, and the chair is moving around. The bed is rocking, and he is hearing. So he's smelling sheep. So that's a smell. He can see the stalactite ceiling and all the other things we described. And he can hear growling, grumbling, and bleeding sounds from behind a refrigerator-sized boulder. And this is blocking the exit. So he can see that Grover is trapped in this cave. And it seems like there's more cavern beyond it. So Grover is like desperate to make sure that Percy can hear him. And that's like what he's really, really focused on. And then we hear a monstrous voice, and this is where I was like noting, like, we get monstrous as our adjective here, which I think is really key. And the voice is calling Grover honey pie and asking if he's done yet. And basically Grover is trying to stall the Cyclops to basically say that he needs more time to finish the train for the dress, and that it hasn't actually been as long as, you know, Polyphemus thinks it has been. So he's talking to Percy, and he's like, you have to help me. He says he's stuck in a cave on an island in the sea, and that this is why no satyr has ever found Pan, because they're always drawn to this place, then they get trapped or eaten by the Cyclops. And this is where Grover leaves out the key piece of information the whole time, which is always super fun in these books.
I know.
So we don't know quite yet what has drawn him to this place, though fortunately we find out at the end that Annabeth will know, and so then we can find out at some point soon. But we do get the name Polyphemus, which is really important. So we get to know that Grover is being trapped by a Cyclops, and he's giving Percy some information, like made it all the way, he almost made it away to St. Augustine, like he's giving him some geographical landmarks.
Yeah, because he also even says, I went to Florida and turned left. So, like, we know, just a funny thing to say, but
I think so, too.
It's giving some kind of understanding, like, okay.
Basic directions.
Like, of, like, where to kind of start your journey in order to find
him. Exactly. And Percy remembers the dream about Grover being trapped in a bridal boutique, and Grover's like, okay, great, the empathy link works, so we know that there's an empathy link, and that Polyphemus thinks that Grover is wearing goat-scented perfume, and that's why he can't, you know, that's why he smells so good. And we get a reference to the original Polyphemus myth that his eye is still half blind from when somebody poked it out. And he's given Grover 2 weeks to finish the bridal train, which he's sort of like dragging out by lying to him about how many days it's been, and relying on him not being able to count very well or pay, you know how to track time very well. And we learn, roll credits, that Grover is in the Sea of Monsters, of course.
They said the thing. They said the name.
They said the thing. We can close the book now. And
I was like, if the first book ended with, and it turns out I was the lightning thief all along.
All along.
It was the lightning thief we made along the way. Trying to fit all the book names in.
Right, in each one. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I was the lost hero.
And I was, right, exactly. So here we get the reveal that Grover's in the Sea of Monsters. Percy's still kind of groggy. He's like, the Sea of what? Like, he's not fully, but he kind of locks in a little more when Grover explains that an empathy link means that their emotions are connected, and if Grover dies, Percy's like, don't tell me I'll die too. And he says, perhaps not. You might live for years in a vegetative state, but it would be a lot better if you got me out of here. And I'm just like, oh no, like, this is not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it sounds like Polyphemus is going to feed Grover, the vegetarian, yummy, yummy sheep meat. So that's something Grover gets to look forward to at the end of this dream. And Percy's like, tell me the thing. What is the thing you said is there?
Yes. What is
Grover's
it that is here that he has?
Exactly. And very helpfully, Grover says, sweet dreams, don't let me die. So that's great sign off from our friend Grover. And the dream fades and Percy wakes with a start. And then Tyson, sweet Tyson, is looking at Percy with his one big brown eye full of concern and asks if Percy's okay. And instead of feeling it as sweet, Percy gets a chill down his back because Tyson is sounding almost exactly like the voice of Polyphemus in the dream.
Yeah, which that's rough. You know, like I will absolutely give that to Percy. Like that is a rough thing to wake up to. You're already struggling, and then you're like, oh God, and you sound like, you know, this being in my dream who's like threatening the life of my best friend. And that is a rough thing to wake up to. And I think this dream serves a great purpose of like really setting the stakes of like, we see how in danger Grover is, also that Grover's level of danger is now directly tied to Percy, which now Grover, Percy, and Annabeth have this really funny link of like Grover has an empathy link with Percy, which puts Percy's life in danger. Annabeth has sworn on the river Styx to keep Percy to the best of her ability out of danger. And so
so kind of like by that snake tale, it's like Percy must save Grover in order to save Grover and himself, and Annabeth must protect Percy because of her oath. And so therefore there's no version of this where Percy and Annabeth don't go try to save Grover. Like they just have to now. It's not even prophecy driven.
Wait. I just had a light bulb moment.
Exciting.
Okay. So the two trains of thought I just had was one, it was never clarified. This oath that Annabeth swore, it was never clarified the duration of it. So is she basically, my thought was, is she basically sworn for the rest of her life that she will always basically, to the best of her ability, like keep Percy out of danger, which then my brain jumped ahead to the 5th book where Percy almost gets the knife in the part of his back that wasn't in the river Styx, but Annabeth stops it and she's like, I don't know, I just had a feeling. Like, does her oath to like keep him from danger in that moment kind of like lock in, and she gets this instinctual, which it's funny because like she swore on that river to protect him essentially, and then he went into that river to become invincible except for this one spot. True. And he didn't tell that to her, and she gets this gut, like, you know, like in other readings of the book have been like, oh well, Percy thought about Annabeth in that moment to help get him, you know, out of the river. He does. But like this oath would have carried through everything. I think you're right. There was no time limit to it. There was no like for this summer.
That's so messed up.
But right? Like there's
I think you're right. It's like in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think you're right. That is wild.
Okay, new theory is how this oath maybe like saved Percy's life in all of the books. Like I now want to note all of the times that Annabeth like saves his butt.
I do too. I think that's
and his
wild.
Life.
Okay, I went to the line. Yep. Yeah. Swear you will do your best to keep Percy from danger.
That's all it is.
There's no time limit to that.
There's
Swear
no
upon the
time
river
limit.
Styx. Wow. Yeah,
this is
I think you're right. We're gonna track that. And think in general, we need to be really paying attention to oaths sworn on the river Styx in this series, because that's a big deal.
And I just think it's so fascinating. Like, for that, it's essentially an oath of protection sworn on the river that then Percy goes into to protect himself. Is also just, I think that's fascinating.
I agree.
I think that's so interesting. Okay,
that's all very interesting. Okay, I think that is true, and we should keep an eye on that.
Yeah,
because Annabeth is kind of locked into that now for eternity.
And then and it keeps them locked in sync because that empathy link is also permanent It does not go away.
True.
So the three of them are kind of
they're all
locked in
tied
perpetuity.
together.
Yes.
Dang.
Out of like
Wow.
having to keep one another alive.
Kind of like having like a blood pact friendship or something. Yeah. Wow.
But like
that's a big
unrelated.
deal.
Like Grover made that empathy link just out of like pure necessity with Percy, not knowing the oath that Annabeth was then gonna swear.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Right?
Yeah, they're like a little row of dominoes. Okay, that's huge. It honestly is interesting, like, it would be important that Kronos not find out about these two factoids, because I feel like you could do a lot of damage if you knew this domino was set up this way, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge.
Okay. Well, slight epiphany.
I love it. Just a little, just a tad.
Sidetrack. Now.
No, I love that.
So yes.
But now we get to the big event, the main event.
Yes.
Rev your ancient Greek engines.
Yes, because we are at the morning of the race.
We are.
It's a beautiful, hot and humid day here at Long Island.
No, thank you.
Sound. Camp Half-Blood. And here, I just have to say, is another moment where not only does Percy, but just about every living, breathing being on that camp ignores the mother of all red flags.
Absolutely.
Which is that magically there are millions of birds.
I can't get over this word. I'm going to harp on this throughout the scene because it is not the only time that millions are said. It's said multiple times. And later we're going to somehow like shoot down basically all the birds. And millions is really big. Multiple millions
I think maybe Percy is exaggerating and saying thousands
for dramatic
and
effect.
Saying millions for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
But even thousands is nuts.
A lot of birds. Millions, it's like, I feel like millions of birds, you wouldn't be able to see the camp. Like, No. It has to be an exaggeration. But it has said multiple times.
I know. But in Percy's description of them, he's like, oh yeah, they're pigeons, but they don't coo like pigeons. They make this annoying metallic screeching. That reminds me of a submarine radar. And I'm like, hey man, and then he just regular pigeon
moves on. Like that's it. Then he's like, the racetrack had been built on a grassy field. Like we just go on with the description, and it's like, you live in the magical world. You're at a magical camp that has been under attack and under threat, and we know monsters can get in. Maybe. And like we learn later, Annabeth knows the name for these birds. And I'm just like, maybe we pause and we just like check out the weird pigeons.
Literally anybody.
Somebody. Yeah.
There are so many people witnessing these
wild.
Pigeons who are obviously not regular pigeons, and they're not doing anything about it.
Millions.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every pigeon they didn't pay attention to, I would be a millionaire. That doesn't make sense. All right. But then we get descriptions of all the chariots and stuff coming up, which I do think is really fun.
It's very
fun.
I
am looking forward to that.
Real quick, before there's like two little fun tidbits before we dive into the descriptions of the chariots that I want to get to. One, which is that Hephaestus's cabin used the bronze bull to make the track because they're now completely docile, and they're just like Hephaestus's cabin is able to turn them into like useful, they're just like farm animals now.
Reuse, recycle, reduce,
And the other fun little tidbit is that Mr. D is not there because he never gets up before 10 o'clock. And I just think that's funny.
Relatable. Like this is the only sentence that has ever made me like Mr. D. I'm like, yeah, I feel that. I love that for you.
And I love that he's like, if I'm going to have to be here, I'm not waking up early. You're not getting me up to anything.
Not before 10.
Anywhere before 10 a.m.
And Tantalus probably knowing that is like, the race will be before 10 a.m.
Right. But it's like, does Dionysus need sleep? No. He's a god.
He's a god.
I know we had some questions about that in book 1 in terms of how do gods sleep and do they, they dream because Ares had the dreams and whatnot. But clearly they don't need sleep. Doesn't need sleep. But he's like, not moving before 10 a.m.
Yeah, he's like, I will be lying in bed, not sleeping, but also I will not get up.
Yeah. And then last really quick thing before we dive into what all the chariots look like, Tantalus gives us the rundown of how the track works, which is or how the race is going to work, which is basically it's a quarter-mile track, twice a round to win. There's 2 horses per chariot. Each team has a driver and a fighter, and basically anything goes on Tantalus's end of like you can do anything you want to try and win, but no killing. Because, well, he doesn't really say that. He just says, if you do, it will result in harsh punishment of no s'mores at the campfire for a week, which is...
Yeah. Which is basically him being like, try not to kill each other, but if you do, I won't be too upset about it.
Yeah.
Which, because, like, we'll go into the next chapter, like... The punishment for killing someone is no s'mores for a week. And then next week, we'll talk about what the punishment is for disrupting the spirit of the event or whatever. And exactly. For saving camp. Way worse than no s'mores for a week. So that's a whole other. But just let's remember that was the punishment for killing people. But I would love to dive into the
take us through the run through of these chariots,
because these are so like this is the kind of thing I love is like how all of the campers show their godly parent identity through the construction of these chariots. It's so fun. So Beckendorf is leading the Hephaestus team, and they had a sweet ride, which I feel like is some of these like monikers just feel very like time and place, you know? But it's made of bronze and iron, and even the horses are magical automatons, which might be our first mention of automatons, and automatons are like quite important throughout all of the Percy Jackson books.
And I love that they're not real horses and that they were made like it just feels perfect. So that they're constructed and
just
made
like
by
the bronze bulls are like made of bronze, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that Percy is sure the chariot has all kinds of mechanical traps and fancy options like a fully loaded Maserati. The Ares chariot is blood red, of course, and is pulled by 2 grisly horse skeletons, which I thought was very interesting.
And it feels like the first hints of Clarice's like skeletal army, which again I think is this funny intersection between Ares and Hades.
And Hades, exactly,
of, like,
which we've talked about a little bit before.
Yeah, like the dead, and you know, who Ares has some power over. Like Hades has power over everyone, but Ares kind of gets a little like, and me too.
Me too, I can a little bit. Well, so do you think that these horses were military horses that were part of the losing side of some army?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I'm thinking that's the only way they get skeletal horses.
Which,
right?
given that I'm pretty sure, doesn't he pull like Confederate soldiers, which is like yikes. But my best guess is these are probably like Confederate army.
Confederate horses. Which the horses didn't have a say in who to fight for during
you can't blame the horses. They're innocent.
So
they're
at least the
and
horses.
everything.
Yeah. They are.
I just gotta say that is rough. Like to be a child of Ares and then be like, and I'm backed by the Confederacy.
Yeah,
like,
kind of rough.
That's
rough.
That's
very rough.
Really, really
like it's
rough.
not always that the losing army would be the like kind of terrible side to be on in every war.
It's just a lot.
But
it's
in
like
the Civil War,
in the most recent major ones, it's you're rocking with the Nazis.
Yep.
Which is like, hey, no,
not
thank
great.
you.
Not great.
I will be passing on that.
Yep.
It's the Confederacy. Like World War One, it's still kind of Germans and but like it's.
I guess you could have British soldiers in the Revolution.
Sure, like for the American Revolution. Yeah.
Yeah. Which in this area,
and you
could
there
find
are
some.
there have been other wars like around the world, and so
that's what I'm saying. I think it's certain parts of the world where like the U.S. I would say was in the wrong in a lot of wars.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. The quote unquote losing side would, you know what I mean? Like, would it be the like morally terrible side to be on? But a lot of the time, as you've pointed out in the big
it's a rough
battles,
crew.
it is, and that's
to be
rough.
forced to kind of rock with just because that's your dad's thing.
Yeah, not a great. Yeah, in general, Aries' things are not great things to be associated with, I would say. But I do think we are agreed that the 2 grizzly horse skeletons came from the losing army of some battle, is why they could be there. And they have a batch of javelins, spiked balls, caltrops, and other nasty toys to throw at people. Apollo's chariot is trim and graceful and completely gold, of course, and pulled by 2 beautiful palominos. And the fighter is armed with a bow, though had promised not to shoot regular pointed arrows at the opposing drivers, which I'm assuming means they'll be like blunted arrows or rubber tipped or something. Which is like, I'm sure they would keep that promise as opposed to some of the other campers, because they're the ones who have to heal the wounds anyway. And so, especially without Chiron there. Hermes' chariot, I love this, is green, kind of old looking, as if it hadn't been out of the garage in years. And I love the idea that they kind of like, they went function over style. Like Apollo, it's kind of the opposite. Like Apollo went style over function, and Hermes went function over style, and they just like added a bunch of booby traps and stuff to theirs and didn't touch the outside at all.
Also, like, for how exhausted Hermes is, like when we actually meet Hermes, that man is bone tired. Like,
true facts.
Just like absolutely exhausted from everything. And so the chariot being
kind of represent, I love that,
like that's representing the like exhaustion that Hermes just is perpetually in, because he is constantly, he's never not working and like helping with communicating, doing like a million things at the same time. It just felt like such a great visual representation of that before we actually like meet Hermes and experience how he's constantly pulled in like a million directions at the same time.
Hermes is burnt out. Say.
He needs a vacation.
No work-life balance for Hermes.
None at all whatsoever.
It's like Hermes and Iris are both kind of like struggle with that.
They need to go where Calypso is, and
they do
take a break on her
a
beach
long
where no
vacation
one can find them.
Yes, on Calypso's island. Absolutely. And the Stoll brothers are manning that chariot because, again, it's only 2 campers per chariot. So it's kind of interesting. Like, everyone can contribute to creating the chariot, but then only 2 can drive and fight from it. So even though it doesn't look that special, Percy's very sure there's all kinds of tricks up their sleeves. And here's where Percy goes up to Annabeth and tries to talk to her about Grover before the race has even started.
And quick thing before we dive into that. So this rundown of all the chariots and their corresponding cabins made me then have the technicality question of, so originally, before the fight, Percy and Annabeth were on a joint team together, going to be chariot races together. They are not a part of the same cabin. And also one is that, I guess that's allowed, but 2, the prize is the winning team's cabin gets like no duties for a month. So how, like, I guess, you know, Percy is just him and Tyson, but like how would that have actually worked?
I guess if that's allowed, that which it must have been, for them to race together, then I think both cabins would have to get which we'll see at the end, but I think both cabins,
because everyone else is like, their chariot is represented by only people from their cabin. Like, it is very like cabin specific. So it was an interesting thing for me, because I was like, but they were originally on the same team and they're from
it's not like clear in the rules that Tantalus gives. And that also begs the question, like, could there then have been other chariots that represent, like, could a Ares and Athena kid have teamed up, or Apollo kid have teamed up, and like we would have had even more chariots? Because I did have that question too. Were they allowed to team up, which you think they would be because they were doing it? And then
also,
what does that mean?
It wouldn't have surprised me if Birds aside and Sans the fight, they had actually teamed up. If Tantalus would have been like, what was against the rules? Them. You disqualification, you weren't allowed to do that. Nah. Clarice still wins. You know, like,
for sure
would have been what he did.
Totally. I could see that.
Okay, so now, yes, we get into, which in my brain, it's like, It was making me think of in the Phantom Menace, like before the pod race, like
Yeah.
the way that they're all messing with each other, like
Totally.
the way that Annabeth is so suspicious of Percy,
Yes.
like in this moment and not trusting him. It just reminded me of the pod racing in the Phantom Menace.
I love that. That's very true. Also makes me want to like see the scene of them doing the chariot race and just hear over it. Now this is pod racing.
No, this is chariot racing. So yes, Percy approaches Annabeth and tells her about his dream, and she kind of perks up when Grover's mentioned, but she seems to get distant and suspicious, and literally, basically keeps on telling Percy, like, you're trying to distract me. And this is where we get the first hint that she knows what the it is, because she says, oh right, like Grover would just happen to stumble across the one thing that could save camp.
Right.
And Percy's confused, and Annabeth isn't having it, but he tries to be like, I'm not making this up, like, Grover's in trouble. And Annabeth is, like, hesitating and doesn't really kind of know whether to trust him, which I just think is fascinating, because it's like, after everything they've been through, they're in such a friction place, and I think it's because everyone's extra on edge, because, like, camp is in danger and everything's off, that I think that makes, like the fight that they have almost like mean more, than it otherwise
would have. I think also just like Annabeth in competition mode is like a different headspace than any other Annabeth.
She's locked in
yeah.
to I'm winning this race and
like full strategy focus. So I feel like that is another element combined with the extra stress and everything you're saying about like being on edge.
But the one thing that I really wanted to point out about this interaction that was really interesting was when Annabeth towards the end says, Percy, an empathy link is so hard to do. I mean, it's more likely you really were dreaming, which to me, I was just like, okay, Annabeth, there are layers to this. One, Percy couldn't have even guessed that an empathy link was a thing.
He wouldn't know
unless
what that
Grover
was.
had told him. You know that to be true. This boy knows nothing about anything. He knows nothing Jon Snow.
He knows
Jon
Snow.
Nothing about the mythological world, except for like the once in a blue moon where he pulls out some knowledge, like in a surprise turn of events. And
except for the one test, what was on the test, and empathy links were not on the test.
The final exam, he doesn't know it. He doesn't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, too, it felt like a moment where I was like, Annabeth, you are severely underestimating Grover. Like, she is not believing that Grover has the ability, because an empathy link is so hard to do. Yeah. She doesn't believe that Grover actually did it successfully.
Which she did in the last book, too.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I think she still is underestimating Grover and his abilities and doesn't have the full belief in him that she will, like, develop.
Totally. I agree. She's still on that journey. And then it's interesting because Percy immediately says, the Oracle, we could consult the Oracle. So he's kind of like really focused. He's like, what do you do when there's a problem in the world?
Right.
You go to the Oracle.
You go to the mummy in the attic.
Oh my gosh. I think that... Okay, that needs to be one of our campfire songs, actually. I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when there's a problem in the world? Go to the mummy in the attic, etc.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that needs to be one of them. And then go on a quest. And he explains more about the Oracle and how, the quest hadn't turned out exactly how he expected from the prophecy, but that... obviously it led to resolving the issues that they had, but that it freaked him out, and Annabeth knew that, and so then she started to take him seriously because she knows that he wouldn't be bringing up going to the Oracle unless he was really serious about what he was saying.
Yes, absolutely. But before their conversation can really continue, Tantalus tells everyone to get to their marks, and Annabeth is basically like, we'll talk later, and throws in an after I win. Because again, she's in like competition Annabeth.
Yeah, 100%. Which, can I just briefly mention, because the conch horn sounds, in order to note that, that's like the second time that has happened, in order, like, it called out for dinner the night before. And I have had this really interesting reaction both times, because usually it's Chiron who's using the conch horn, conch horn, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And I literally like had this feeling of like, I don't know if it's like betrayal or indignance or something, where I'm like, how dare Tantalus use the conch horn that like Chiron is supposed to be using?
In my brain, he's not using it. That man has too much pride. He's got a satyr or someone, like someone else is
doing it.
He's telling someone to do it.
That makes me feel better. I just don't like the idea that he's doing it instead of Chiron.
You're having that like the beginning of the last chapter where Percy's like, someone's been in my room. Ew,
yes. I was like, how dare you put your 3,000-year-old, lips on that horn that Chiron is supposed to be.
He's got too much pride and ego to be doing that measly job himself.
That would make
in my
me feel
opinion,
better.
In my perspective on Tantalus, he's not doing that himself. He's getting someone else, someone that he thinks views as very subservient to him, to be doing that.
Kind of like a radar with the trumpet and mash. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I hope you're right about that, because it was like that really icky feeling.
And then before the race actually truly begins, we get another reminder about the birds. And that they're kind of blinking, they're glinting strangely. Like, it's very clear these are not regular birds.
This is back to the like Cerberus. Oh, I heard the sound again, but where's Cerberus?
Because it says nobody else seemed to be paying them much attention.
Yeah.
But they're making Percy nervous. Like, somehow
intuition.
There's this weird, it almost feels like there's this weird like effect happening of like no one, the fact like it just confounds me that no one was noticing
paying attention.
It feels,
at least from Percy's perspective. Like, because from other people's perspective, it would seem like Percy was ignoring it too, right? So
that's a good point.
It could be that everyone is noticing it and not acting or doing anything about it because they're focused on the chariot races, or there's been too much stuff at camp, so they don't want to see it. But it just reminds me so much of like when we were in the underworld, and it's like, I'm hearing this stuff. Where's Cerberus? And it's like, he keeps paying attention. They're making the whole forest rustle. Their beaks are glinting strangely. Their eyes seem shinier. Their eyes seem shinier than regular birds' eyes. But, I think it's like at some point you have to start paying attention. Like, obviously his intuition is working, but then you have to act on it, dude.
Yeah, truly. And so then Tyson and Percy are trying to get everything set up, but Tyson is struggling because the horses are scared of him. But Percy talks to the horses and basically kind of like bribes them by being like, I'm going to give you tons of sugar cubes. If you just kind of chill out and you let this thing happen, I will give you so
very
many
big sugar cubes and apples. Did I mention the apples?
Yes. And so the horses agreed to get harnessed, and now we get this description of a chariot, which is kind of great. Like, if you've never seen one and you are kind of struggling to imagine it, it's a kind of terrifying description because it's basically just a wooden basket open at the back, mounted on an axle between two wheels, and the driver stands up the whole time, and you can feel every bump in the road. And you can wipe out like so easily because it's made of light wood, because the point is speed, not safety. Yep. It's basically like it is designed for pure speed, no ounce of safety in sight in any of this construction.
Yeah. I love how Percy ends that with, it's an even better rush than skateboarding. Like, he's psyched. He's like, it's so dangerous. Let's go.
A middle schooler without, like,
exactly saying you're a middle schooler.
And being
oh my god, the skateboarding in middle school. It was like, that was when everyone was doing skateboarding.
Yes.
I remember that.
And like the BMX bikes? That was a big thing. For me as well in middle school, doing all the flips and the turns and all that stuff on the bike. And then Tyson and Percy have this kind of like little regroup about strategy, and Tyson is insisting like because Tyson's the fighter, like Percy is the driver, Tyson's the fighter, and Tyson's like, but I'm not gonna hit the ponies, and Percy's like, no, we're not gonna hit the horses.
No hitting the
also try like the people, if you can help it. Just basically, he's kind of like, your job is to try to keep the chariots as far away from us.
Push them farther away.
And then what's another just really fascinating Percy Tyson dynamic is Tyson is like, we will win, and Percy's immediate thought is, we are so going to lose. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, you have seen Tyson catch fiery cannonballs. You have seen
Yes.
Tyson single-handedly destroy a bronze bull. If I'm in
Saving
those
your
shoes,
life.
I'm like, it's in the bag. I have
Yeah.
Tyson. What can anyone do against Tyson? Like,
Exactly.
I'm good. But
Yep.
Percy's like, we are so going to lose. I'm like, dude, you have the best man on your team to get this thing done. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
what are you talking
absolutely.
about?
No, I know. It's just, it's part of the way that he's seeing Tyson through this like skewed perspective.
Yeah.
And even though he thinks that, he's like, we have to try, and he's like wants to prove something, but he's like not even sure what he wants to prove. Like, he can't tell,
or like
if he wants
who
to
he
prove,
wants to prove it to.
Yeah, that like Tyson isn't such a bad guy, or that he wasn't ashamed, or that they hadn't hurt him. And it's like, he is, I think, really focused on the other campers primarily, but he's just like, because he's still of two minds about this, he's just like not even sure what he's trying to prove.
Yeah.
And so we've already had like millions of pigeons in the trees, right?
Yeah.
And then as the chariots are lining up, more shiny-eyed pigeons are gathering in the woods. And I'm just like, how many pigeons?
How many pigeons does it take to scare campers?
How many pigeons are there? Like, I just don't know.
I know. But then the race is off. We're off to the races.
Yep.
And immediately the Apollo and Hermes chariots kind of take each other out, because Hermes is, the Stoll brothers do something to immediately take out the Apollo chariot, but then they run into it.
Yep. They just like ram into it.
Yeah. And so
then they both flip.
Yep. Crashed. So 2 cabins straight out the gate. Done.
Yep.
Taken
in
out.
the first 20 feet.
Yep.
And Percy goes, I love this sport.
I know.
Like, he's so into it.
Yeah. And at this point, Annabeth is like fully in the lead. Ares is making really good time pulling ahead. Hephaestus is starting to gain on Percy and Tyson. And Beckendorf kind of pulls a trick, and these 3 sets of balls and chains shoot straight toward their wheels. But Tyson whacks all of them out of the way. Again, skilled,
your point.
Skilled. Yes.
Super skills.
Yeah. And he actually then, Tyson is able to shove the Hephaestus chariot, send them skittering sideways, and they pull ahead. And this is when Tyson is like, the bird. He goes, birds. Like, Tyson is even like, danger.
Yeah. Somebody finally is like...
Yes. And because they have risen from the trees, and they're spiraling like a huge tornado heading toward the track. But Percy goes to himself, no big deal. They're just pigeons.
I cannot even.
I know. And so then we're, like, Percy and Tyson are gaining on Annabeth, and Annabeth's fighter, who's an unnamed camper, goes from being, like, smug originally at the start of the race to now not really smiling and, like, focusing in on, like, okay, they're really gaining on us. But now the pigeons have not only been swarming, but they are now, thousands are dive bombing the spectators in the stands and attacking the other chariots. So Beckendorf gets fully mobbed, and the chariot wheels off the course, goes to the strawberry fields. Like, they're taken out. In the Ares chariot, Clarice somehow has this screen of camouflage netting that she like yells to get thrown over their basket, and the birds are swarming around it, pecking at it, but it's like protecting them enough that her and her fighter can keep on going,
which I feel like is a cool thing for like the daughter of the god of war to have. You know, like a camouflage netting. I feel like that kind of makes sense, and it's like a interesting thing to include in your, as a defensive thing in your chariot supplies.
Absolutely. And then because their chariot is being driven by skeletal horses are completely unbothered by the birds trying to peck at the holes in their eyes, because they're like, we got nothing for you to eat, dude.
They're skeletal. Yeah.
We're already bones.
Yeah.
you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
But the spectators are now being viciously attacked. And this is when Annabeth kind of clocks them and names that they're Stymphalian? Stymphalian birds. Stymphalian, and she says that they'll strip everyone to bones if they don't drive them away.
Which is like, can we just say terrifying?
Oh, that's, yeah, terrifying. I was going to say, now we get our stakes. Now we get our, these aren't just like, oh, they're clawing at you. Now we get our stakes of this is life or death. Like,
this would be like the bird massacre.
Yes. And so Percy decides to ditch the race, tells Tyson that they're turning around, and Annabeth joins him, and they're trying to, and Annabeth is trying, it says like heroes in arms, they're trying to get everybody kind of gathered. It like reminds me of the bullfight at the hills where everyone was scattered and Clarice is trying to rally and set some like order and like a formation, but like everyone is
like chaos and everyone like in that case they were on fire, in this case they're just all being pecked at, and it's like by millions of birds apparently. I will say there's this funny moment where Tyson asks Percy, going the wrong way, and then Percy says always. Yes. It's just like, it's kind of like I feel like here he gets a sort of underdog energy back where he's like, I'm always going the wrong way. Like,
always going the wrong way. Yep. And we basically get this kind of description of how like they're trying to fight these birds and no one's really having any good luck. There are just truly too many of them.
And one nails Percy in the back end, and he almost jumped straight out of the chariot. So like they're really getting dive bombed and pecked at. Really,
they are. And Annabeth yells to ask, or excuse me, Percy yells to Annabeth to ask, how do you get rid of them? And this is when she gives us her lovely mythological history knowledge and says that Hercules used noise, brass bells. He scared them away with the most horrible sound he could. And I do think it's interesting that like in this book where we're going to quest for the Golden Fleece, that Hercules also got we're starting with these birds, and we will encounter many. I mean, because it's Hercules like fought all the monsters, and you know, not all of them, but
it's like different trials.
Yes, and we will encounter future ones. Like Percy will have to do future ones that Hercules also did. So I think it's really interesting, but particularly in this book, for it to include so many kind of references to other things that Hercules encountered. And then she gets an idea about Chiron's collection. We can only assume his music collection. And they both, Percy and Annabeth, kind of become in lockstep about it and switch like kind of their focus to getting to the big house as quickly as possible. And at this moment, Clarice has crossed the finish line completely unopposed and unaware up until this point of what's going on. But then she notices and realizes what's happening, and she kind of dives into the fight, but then yells at them being like, why are you running? Like, you cowards, what are you doing?
Because Annabeth has jumped from her chariot into Percy's and is now going with Percy toward the big house, as we've learned, in the wrong direction for winning the race.
And then I just gotta say, I think we get some unnecessary shots fired at Dean Martin here.
I agree.
Because what Percy and Annabeth select to bring back in a boombox, shout out to the early 2000s and the boomboxes, is Chiron's favorite, the all-time greatest hits of Dean Martin. And it says, suddenly the air was filled with violins and a bunch of guys moaning in Italian.
Shots fired at Italians and Dean Martin?
But I'm just like, Dean Martin, am I mixing up, famously part of the Rat Pack, right? It's that same Dean Martin. I'm like, man, just shots fired.
It really makes me wonder if, like, okay, the inspiration for this, because there's been shots fired at Chiron's music taste before.
Yes.
And I just wonder if maybe Rick Riordan actually likes Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and like old jazz, right? And maybe he played it in his classroom, and maybe all the kids were like, "Oh, like my ears are bleeding," and maybe he put that in this book.
That then became my question of like, so this is making it canon that these birds think that that is like a horrifying sound?
Well, not necessarily, because she just says noise. She doesn't say bad noise. Oh no, she does. She says horrible sound.
Scare them away with
she does say
horrible.
Horrible brass bells. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. At least makes that the birds agree with the kids,
Percy
at
and
least.
Annabeth's assessment that this is the most horrifying sound. Which then, reading this, I had a whole train of thought of like, okay, so what qualifies to these birds, and is it actually that as long as the person playing it thinks it's the most horrible sound, the birds will also be horrified?
Right.
Or do they have a certain selection?
Some kind of,
they have an ear to what they do and don't like.
Objective bird, metal
right,
bird.
and if you pick the wrong artist, then they're still going to keep on attacking you. You know, like...
Does she say who made the birds?
Mm-mm.
Because is it the taste of the person who originally made the birds?
Okay, so, quick Google. So they are not actually, these birds are not actually created, according to the best source on the internet, Wikipedia.
Yeah. That's not a joke anymore.
It's really not. According to Wikipedia, these birds were pets of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, or they'd been brought up by Ares, the god of war. But they are a group of voracious birds, and their name is derived from their dwelling in a swamp in Stymphalia, however it's pronounced. But basically, they have beaks of bronze and sharp metallic feathers, but they are not... does not appear that they are like creations in the way that like the bulls, you know, for example, were creations. So these are just, you know, I guess kind of like monster. They're, you know, like other quote unquote monsters, beings that exist. They just happen to have metallic beaks and wings.
Which I guess makes sense because I think when they're destroyed,
they disappear into dust.
They go into dust.
Yes, which is the clue that they are like the Minotaur and everything else.
I wonder if there's other examples of like monsters being metallic, having metallic components that aren't made by someone like Hephaestus.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose...
So they just have their own personal taste.
They just have their own taste in music that happens to align
depending
with Percy
on,
and Annabeth.
Again, according to Wikipedia, they're either the pets of Artemis or they were raised by Ares.
It could be that
so
Artemis or Ares don't like.
Gotten taste passed down to them.
Right. I feel like that makes more sense for me with Artemis. I actually think Ares would have liked the Rat Pack, like the vibe of the Rat Pack.
I think Artemis is just like, you're a man.
Exactly. That's why I think that kind of works. So let's say that they were...
Okay, I like that.
Pets
I like that
of
theory.
Artemis? Okay, so did you say pets? Okay, so these were Artemis. Artemis had millions of pet birds who all don't like any music by men or bells. And maybe it's just because Hercules, a man, was playing the bells.
True. Right.
So it's still music by a man. So that actually works.
Oh, okay. Great.
Wild.
We've cracked it.
Either way, we figured it out. The demon pigeons went nuts, which I also think it's funny to call them demon pigeons. I thought that like from the chapter title, because demon to me connotes like hell, right? Like that's that kind of concept. And we don't have that same kind of concept in the Greek mythological world. So I think it's kind of funny for Percy to like invoke. It's just sort of like,
I know,
they are behaving like a demon.
Also, the other thing that's funny to me now in the post K-pop Demon Hunters, because I feel like there is a pre and post, there was such a like monumental moment and movie and soundtrack that like time is pre KP D H, but it just then like my brain was then like calling them demon pigeons made me think of them like coming from like being like the other demons.
There's the bird with the hat. Yeah. I know. Oh my god, imagine millions of tiny little hats.
Okay, that would be cute.
Yeah. Till they're pecking your eyes out. That's cute.
Yeah. They have tiny hats because they're doing like a little Dean Martin routine.
Right. They just, instead of flying away, they just all sort of like zoop, and then they start doing like da 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 da.
Yeah.
I would
they're doing dance routines while they're like pecking your eyes out.
Doing kicks and synchronized flying and
oh god. Okay.
Well, I mean, in my headcanon, I love that idea, but what in fact happens is that they get very disoriented, they start flying in circles, running into each other, like they wanted to bash their own brains out, and they abandon the track altogether, flying skyward in a huge dark wave, and then Annabeth is able to call for the archers, and Apollo's cabin has great aim, and here's where I run into a math problem.
Okay, great.
Okay. Apollo's archers, most of them, and how many of them are there?
I know your problem.
How many of them are there?
I think we've maybe got somewhere between 6 to 12. Maybe.
Okay, maybe a dozen at the most. Yeah. Each of them could knock 5 to 6 arrows at once. Yeah. And we're up against how many birds?
I know.
Millions of birds. And yes, some of the birds escape. I understand that.
Here's
but
the thing.
Just the
I think the reason why it works is because it does say that then they, in reference to the pigeons, abandoned the track altogether and flew skyward in a huge dark wave. So I think they're getting the stragglers. They're not getting the millions. Sure. Like they employed the Hercules approach of you can't actually take them all out. You have to scare them away with the scary bad sounds of Dean Martin, apparently.
Right. Of Mambo Italiano.
Then you just get right.
Yeah. That's the song, by the way. That's playing in my head. That's the song. Just for the record. That's the song for the record. That's been playing in my head.
Fleeing.
Yeah. Hey, Mambo. Mambo. And they're just like, not the Mambo Italiano.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think they're, in order for it to make sense, they're just getting the stragglers who are maybe too disoriented to
and
join.
The millions are the ones they say are survivors that are forming a distant trail of smoke on the horizon.
Yes. Because in order for them to form, like, a dark cloud that then still looks like a trail of smoke so far away, it's a lot of birds.
It's millions of birds.
It's millions of birds, do you know?
Yes, and then we're left with the wreckage. The camp was saved, but most of the chariots have been completely destroyed, and almost everyone, which makes sense because again, millions of pigeons, whatever, 100-something, 200 campers. Not that many campers.
No.
So most people are bleeding from multiple bird pecks. The kids from Aphrodite's cabin are screaming because their hairdos have been ruined and their clothes had been pooped on. And I'm just like, again, we have to always fire shots at the Aphrodite kids. But we'll circle back. And Tantalus, seemingly oblivious to the utter chaos and destruction around him, crowns Clarice the first winner, giving her golden laurels, and she's stunned looking because... Again, she's not there like, I won and then I fought the birds. She's like, I didn't see the birds because I had camouflage on and they weren't getting us as much and didn't realize everyone had stopped racing. And then Tantalus turns and smiles at Percy and says, now to punish the troublemakers who disrupted this race. So we end the chapter... I think feeling kind of steamed and indignant on Percy's behalf and tired from all the bird pecking and the loud jazz.
Yeah. Hey, Mambo. Just on a loop. Like the boombox is like stuck and it just...
Right, exactly. That's what I'm picturing. Yeah.
This is like quite the chapter. It's quite the meaty chapter with a lot that happens in it. And another one that ends on a low point. We kind of two back-to-back chapters where it's rough and it gets rougher and it ends on a low point.
Yep. And we're back to some chaos. Like, I feel like when we started this book, it was like chaos. Like there was a lot of really intense, dramatic either battle or in the taxi. Like it's quite chaotic. And even arriving at camp is really chaotic because everything is different. And then now, I do think that like it feels like this book, it's like you took Camp Half-Blood and then you took a really Tyson's 10-foot stick and you just stirred everything up. Yes. And it's just like stirring and stirring and stirring at the beginning.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels like when you get to the end of this, you also, then you're like, oh my gosh, and Grover's in trouble. Oh my gosh, and Percy's in mortal peril. And oh my gosh, you know, the effect of the birds is sort of like overwhelming in the sense of then there's this still emotional through line. And so then you're worried and concerned, but you're also like overwhelmed and kerfuffled. Like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. And the aftermath is about to up the ante between Tantalus and Percy. And like everything, we're now reaching, like everything is converging to reach our like first pinnacle of the story of like the inciting, like we are on the verge. I can't remember which chapter it is, but we are on the verge of then moving like out from camp and like onto the unofficial quest.
Yes, the unofficial quest.
But yeah, so we're like really like establishing and upping the stakes. I feel like a lot, like emotionally, plot wise, like everything.
Absolutely. And we have our current mystery. So originally the mystery is like what's happening at camp kind of thing.
Yes.
Now it's like there is some kind of object or thing or whatever that attracted Grover to Polyphemus's island, that Annabeth knows what it is, that could save camp. So also in terms of like some of the bigger concerns of this story, we have a nice little mystery to unravel and learn more about, which is exciting.
Yes. And we get that established not only link but overlap between where Grover is also where the unknown thing that can save camp is.
Yes.
And these two are in the same spot, and we gotta
left from Florida.
Go to Florida and turn left, and then you'll get to the Sea of Monsters.
Exactly. Roll credits. And scene. Any final thoughts or themes from this chapter?
You know, I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything. I think I'm excited by many a realization that I feel like occurred.
Yes.
And you know, now my brain is just kind of playing Mambo Italiano to take us out. So anything else from you?
Nope, just on a loop, probably for the rest of the day.
Hey, Mambo. Just kind of what's going on right now.
So that's fun. Yep, exactly. Just a little dance party in the head.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, we like old jazz, so that's, you know, would not
we would
scare
not
us if we
be,
were the
no, that would not work. If we were those
good.
birds, that would not work.
We'd be good to go. But I do like our theory about Artemis. So we'll have to circle back on that. Well, then we'll have to see what fate lies in store for Percy and Annabeth.
Yeah.
What Tantalus is up to next week when we read Sea of Monsters, Chapter 7, I Accept Gifts from a Stranger. Bye.
Bye. Hey, Mambo.
Mambo Italiano.
Just had to take us out with that. Bye.